for the family life cycle, we kind of really have to start out with adults, with actually two adults, to start a family. Now, you can't really go from children because the parents raise the children. So you really have to start out with the adults and go through the life cycle of a family. Now, the starting of a new family, okay, there are 8 stages. Now, when the life cycle kind of starts for a family is like, they call it either stage or the cycle of life would be stage 6. But let's go down through the stages. Stage 1, an adult, you find someone and become friends and then start a relationship. Stage 2, learning about each other and the 500 questions that need to be asked of each other. Then, if things can be worked out, then we go to stage 3, which is they get married, and the family will start its development life cycle. Now, the family development traditional stage theories describe family life in stages usually marked by children's ages. Over the 20th century, each series were sometimes called family stages, family life cycle, and or family development. Now, perhaps the best known was the 8-stage model outlined, okay, within this here. Briefly, these are the stages. Now, stage 1, married couples with no children. Stage 2, childbearing families, oldest child age birth to 30 months. 3, families with preschool children, oldest child age between 2.5 to 6 years old. Stage 4, families with school children, oldest child age is 6 to 13. 5, families with teenagers, oldest child between 13 and 20. Families launching young adults, okay, this is stage 6. This is when you have a young adult. Stage begins when the oldest child leaves home and ends when youngest child leaves home. Okay, well, stage 6 is the most important one because you send your children out to start their own family, which is stage 1. It starts over again. Well, but for the parents, after stage 6, the children have gone. Now in stage 7, okay, the parents are left at home by themselves, and they call it the empty nest. Okay, and number 8 is the aging family members when they retire and ends with their death. Now, Stage 7 and stage 8 is later on in life after the children have left home. So, stage 1 through 6 is the most important for those are the childbearing years. Now, there is a lot of things that you can learn in between, but basically, the stages of family is really important for a lot of the new marriages with the couples. They go from stage 1, which is they get married, they don't have any children, and then they go to stage 1 and stage 2 is when they have small children. Now, there is a stage before marriage, now, which is not outlined in the cycle of the family because it's a family. Now, before the family, and that is actually in stage 6, is when the children leave home and they find someone. Now, there is, I call it, the 3 stages of marriage. Now, why I call it the 3 stages of marriage, because stage 1 is when you find somebody, you get to know them, you become friends. Okay? Stage 2 is when you get into a relationship with that person. And then stage 3 is when you get married, which is actually stage 6 within the family cycle. So, but stage 3 within a marriage, I call it, well, it's pre-marriage. And stage 3 is when you get married and you start your family, which is actually stage 1 in the family. Your stage 6 is what you're doing right now, you're starting your own family. Now, with the first 2 stages, within your life cycle is really important. Now, that is really interesting because the fact is, I will go through it. Now, stage 1, okay, is basically one of the stages that everyone goes through. They'll find somebody, they become friends, and they see a lot of each other and they do things together, but they don't do much talking about future things or about even married things. They just kind of date and they do this and they do that, and they really don't talk about too much. And then they go from stage 1 to stage 3. Well, they miss stage 2. But stage 3 is you get married and you start a family. Well, all of a sudden, when you miss stage 2, within stage 3, you fight. Later on, you cheat. Later on, you separate and get divorced because you missed stage 2, which is the most important stage with any relationship. So, stage 1 is to get to know each other. Stage 2 is your relationship with each other. And then stage 3 is marriage. Now, stage 2 is your relationship. Now, it's different than becoming friends and hanging out. and doing things together with your friends or friend. Now, it's really interesting because there's so many people that don't even realize that they have missed stage 2 because their parents missed stage 2. Now, stage 2 is your relationship with each other and your friendship. So, here I'm going to read what I said here. Stage 2 is when you enter a relationship that consists of sitting down, talking about what you want out of life, and that means both of reality sits in and talk this over. How many children, what you want out of life, and even what you want to do when you get old, and even where you want to live, what job you want, and many, many other things. And there is a website, you can look it up, for over 500 questions that you can ask each other. Now, this is all before you decide to get married, because there is a lot of things that need to be talked about. And if you don't talk to each other about all this stuff before you get married, this is why couples fight. Is because they never discussed and never come to an understanding of where to live, what to buy for a car, all the many things that comes up with the children, relatives, where do you want to live, where do you want to work, what car you drive. There is many, and even what you want to do in the future, like when you retire, you want to travel. You know, this is when either your relationship will go forward or you will disagree so much that after a little while you realize that you're not compatible. And you do all this here before you get married, and then find out later on that you're not compatible. So there is a lot of things that really need to be talked about and really need to be done way before you get married. So let's continue with this. So for both of you do not even get to half of these questions and to agree upon, and you will fight over a lot of little things later on that you should have already discussed before you got married. It's like the best one is, which way does the toilet paper go? That was a big controversy. Well, I want it to go over, and the other one goes, no, I want it under. So every time they go in the bathroom, they change it. Now, the right way, if you have cats and you have kids, is it has to go down the back side. And you go, well, I don't like it. Well, you have to do that, whether you like it or not. Because if it goes over, the cat will come over and hit that, and all that toilet paper will go on the floor. Any of the kids come in, they hit that front. All that toilet paper, if it goes over, will hit that floor, and they'll empty that roll. Now, if it goes down the back, when the cat or the kids hit that roll, what does it do? It doesn't unroll and go on the floor. It just turns around and around and around. So, and that was one thing that I learned when I had cats and with the kids, because if I didn't do that, I'd go in the bathroom and I'd find the whole roll of toilet paper on the floor, wet. You know, it don't take very long before you to realize to turn it around. So, I mean, there's a lot of little things like that that you really have to learn and discuss and why it has to be that way. Okay? Now, little things could turn into big things and divorce. So, you want to really talk about as much as you can before you get married. And I mean way before. And don't think that all these questions will make them run away. Well, the things that will make them run away is later on when you cheat on them. Why did you cheat on them? Because you guys don't get along. Well, if you'd have done this before you got married, you wouldn't have had the problem of somebody cheating. Because it wouldn't have happened because you guys wouldn't be together in the first place. So, and you basically want to do this because later on in life, if you can't agree on anything or everything, you just will not get along. So, this is when stage 2 is one of the most important part of a relationship. There's a difference between a friendship and a relationship and being married. Now, friendship is when you get to know somebody a little bit and spend a lot of time with them, you become friends with them. Now, a relationship was when you get into, you have discussed everything, and you come to the conclusion that you want to spend the rest of your life together, and you are compatible and want the same things throughout your lives. Now, things do change. People do change. But to start out, you are both compatible. If not, this is the time to end it. So, and you basically really need to talk about everything. And because later on it's gonna, and the children are going to all of a sudden realize that their parents don't fight. They sit and talk. You realize the advantage and then the understanding of the children that their parents don't fight. They sit down and have a regular conversation and work things out. All the rest of the kids in school, their parents are fighting and they get divorced and stuff, and they ask about your parents and you go, my parents don't fight. And they're looking at you like you're crazy from a different planet because all their parents fight. Well, you see, yours wouldn't if they'd have settled everything before they got married. Now, I want to explain something right now is because the stages, the 3 stages, now, I've talked about that. Now, first stage is friendship. You get to know them. You spend a lot of time with them. Stage 2 is your relationship. Okay? And then you want to realize that you are compatible and you want to spend the rest of your life together. Now, the only difference between this point in time is stage 3, which you get married. Now, marriage is just a written contract stating that you will stay until death do you part to help, and we will set up a family and you will raise the children together. Now, that's the contract. And everybody don't realize a marriage is a contract between 2 people. That's the difference between an actual relationship and a marriage. And also the benefits and the real thing is, if you're going to spend the rest of your life together, you want to get married, so this way your wife or spouse has the same name, same last name. And the children will have the same last name. Because as they get older and they get into school, if the parents and the children all have the same last name, then it's really going to get into the play of the school, the children. They'll have a sense of belonging because everybody has the same last name. And that means that they know they belong to that family because they have the father's last name and the parents live together. So it's really important to do that stage 3 and get married. Once you get past stage 2 and enter stage 3. Now, the reason for the procreation of children within the marriage is so that the children would be born in a marriage environment with everybody having the last name. Now, if the children are born outside the marriage, they usually have the mother's last name. Now, all of a sudden they realize that their father has a different name than they do, and they don't have the sense of belonging because the family is broken. Because of even the name says that they're orphans, which really they are, because they have no father that they can call dad because he don't live there. So you really want to pay attention in stage 2 and not try to procreate and have children before you're married. Because of the family environment and of the children that belong to that family. And there is so many people that all they want is the physical, not the family environment. So you have to weed them out. And this is the only way to do it, is to stay celibate until the time comes that you are actually married. And you realize of all the diseases, would all of a sudden a lot of them would just go away because people weren't sleeping with 20 or 30 people. They have one partner for life. And you realize that disease eventually would be non-existent because of that. Now, this really is kind of really interesting because a lot of people go from stage 1 to stage 3 and can't figure out why they fight. Then all of a sudden one gets up and leaves and finds somebody else. Well, all of a sudden they find somebody else within 6 months. They have left that one and moved on to the next one. Well, it's because they go from stage 1 to stage 3. Or a lot of them stay in stage 1 and don't even get to stage 2, let alone stage 3. So, and this is why a lot of relationships don't work. Now, I've had a lot of questions asked about marriage and why people cheat. Well, I just told you. Because they have missed stage 2 within their friendship to relationship to marriage. You can't go from stage 1 friendship to marriage. It just will not work over time because you haven't discussed anything until it happens. Like, well, I don't like that car. Take it back. And then he's going, no, I bought this because I like it. Well, all of a sudden now you've got to fight. Now, if you just said, what kind of car do we want to drive, and let's go together and get one. Then there would be no argument. This is what the problem is. Communication with each other. And the big one, I call it the big one, is after you're married, continue date night. That was really interesting, because if you do not continue date night, how do you stay friends? 2 or 3 nights a week. If you've got children, get a babysitter. Even if it's your mother, get a babysitter. Get out of the house and go out and just sit and talk. Shut the phones off. Shut everything off. And just sit and eat and sit and talk about all the things that's going on that day, or things that could happen, or things that has happened. So each one of you know what's going on within the family, with the children, even at work, everything that has to pertain to each of your lives. The big one, communication. 3 times a week, date night. Then on the weekends is a big one too, because to keep the family together, you have to have a family time with the relations, with your relations. That means other family members, like your mother, father, your sister, your brothers. Invite everybody over on Saturday and have a cookout or a dinner, and find some place where everybody can fit, and have everybody bring something like a dinner, or a potluck, or a pan, or something even to cook, or something, and make sure they come ahead of time so you have time to prepare it. But have a big meal with all your relatives and family. Now, you don't have to have it every weekend, but I would say twice a month, set it up and do it. Now, if everybody wants to, you can set it up for every Saturday. Because Sunday is family time. You spend time with your family. That means you do things with the children. You take them, even if you take them to a little restaurant somewhere and eat. You take them to the park. Interaction. Don't sit home and rent a movie. You're not interacting with anyone, except you're just sitting there watching a movie. You're not interacting with them. You're there with them, but that means you're not interacting with them. Now, to interact with them, you have to go to the park and play frisbee or ball or anything that has to pertain to physical movement. As time goes by, as the children get older, they will look forward to Sunday to spend it with their mom and dad and do things with them. Even if you go to the mall and walk around in the wintertime, just to window shop. That doesn't mean you have to buy anything. You can just go to the mall and look around. And then if the mall, if you can afford it, go to one of them little restaurants in the mall and sit and eat and talk and have a good time with the children. Go to the arcades. There is many, many things that you can do with the children, or even go camping once in a great while in the summer. Spend the Sunday morning, get up and get everything all together, or have everything all together and throw it in the car and go to the park or go somewhere, and I call it camping. Sit down, and light a little fire, cook marshmallows and get some tin foil and wrap some food in it and throw it in the fire. And there's all kinds of stuff you can do. So aluminum foil, you put around anything, aluminum foil, potatoes, hamburger, hot dog, anything. You can wrap it around aluminum foil and throw it in the fire. Within 5 or 10 minutes, it'll be all done. So there is just so many things that you can do with your children and spouse. Now, why I say spouse is because a family consists of two people, not necessarily the same sex. Now, this is really controversial. This is why I say spouse, is because there is a lot of families with the same sex of husband and wife, which is really irrelevant. You have children, you have the responsibility to raise the children, no matter where the children come from. Now, if you want to get into that subject, I will talk about that later. So, for now, basically, there's 3 stages of becoming husband and wife within the 3 stages. Make sure you do stage 2. Bye for now.